Punk Rock Horror Podcast. I'm Cody.
I'm Matt.
I'm Barry Fuzzy Toes. How the fuck you doing?
Yeah, we got a special guest if you couldn't tell from that very long intro.
The intro before the music cut in, and it was all that punk rock music that you heard. Yeah. We're joined by the legend that has been a little absent from our lives, but he decided to hop on with us today, Billy Fuzzy Toes.
It's about time, you fucking son of a bitch.
Hey, fuck you. And today we're here to remind you, if you eat ass, you have no right to be picky about the food you eat.
Just saying, if you haven't licked a butthole at least once in your life, you're a prude.
Oh, man. I met a dude who likes to go by the name Mudhole last night when I met up with Andy from CPRA.
So we know what he likes.
Yeah, he's trying to get this girl to believe his name was Mudhole. I don't know why. Poor dude collapsed out of his chair twice throughout the night, and I mean hardcore, boom, Chris Brown was the floor and he was Rihanna. Bad,
He got pissed on. He'd been R. Kelly.
You got drip, drip, drip.
Ooh, that poo poo platter. Oh no, batter.
It's doo doo butter.
Doo doo butter.
Got that doo doo butter.
I want to pee on you.
Drip, drip, drip.
Give me that
poo poo. Give me that pee pee.
Here at the Punk Horror Podcast, we are a mature podcast with intellectual, provoking topics.
I don't think we can bring you on anymore now.
Don't worry, I ain't a professional.
It's not Billy, it's Aaron.
Hey, at least I ain't pulling a Harrison.
I say poop always comes up in our conversations when we have a guest.
I've noticed. When I'm talking about the show to people, I have to intro that we make a lot of poop jokes.
Howdy ho, I'm Mr. Hanky.
Yeah. Mr. Hanky, the Christmas poo.
He loves me and he loves you.
It doesn't even matter if you're a Jew.
Oh, man.
Put that arm down. Anyways, so we're doing actually kind of cool episode. We're actually doing a part 2, way back in the day.
This is actually our first follow-up episode ever of a topic we've done before.
So we decided that because there's been such in the past year or so, there's been such a huge releases of brand new horror games, whether indie or even AAA horror video games. We decided that we wanted to touch on it again, especially with the release of Resident Evil 2, The Evil Within 2 a couple of years ago. There's a huge renaissance for them.
Oh yeah,
it's nice.
I mean, it's the same case that why we started this podcasting. Horror has been in the mainstream media for decades, just no one's ever given it the right attention, and it has such a huge importance that no one, again, gives it the credit that it deserves. And so, I mean, with horror video games, it's just kind of funny if you think about it, because it's I feel almost a decade ago, sports games were the top-notch shit. It was Madden, the NBA 2K.
The 5 different baseball games.
Yeah, WWE, that was the top-notch. And also, Call of Duty and Halo and, all those first-person shooters. And now it's, everything's kind of got pushed out of the way for, horror. And, we can make the argument that it's also, horror in movies. Because of that, has also helped, with Get Out. Jordan Peele.
Holy shit, that's a good movie.
The Conjuring, Hereditary.
Fuck a Hereditary. You got that fucking EpiPen, that whole shit would have never gone down.
I agree. I don't disagree with you at all.
I have no idea what you guys are talking about.
Everything that happened to them fucking deserved to happen to them. If that little girl had her EpiPen when she was fucking supposed to, that shit would have happened in the first place.
Oh, I do know that scene.
Girls and gals, just so you know, me and Billy did see Hereditary when it was in theaters, and we had a long conversation about it.
I really didn't like the ending the first time around, but, after that conversation, I liked it. And I realized, oh yeah, that EpiPen would have solved the whole problem.
Oh yeah, the EpiPen fucked everything over.
See, that's how I feel about A Quiet Place. I love that movie, but it's the daughter's fault the entire time. Everything that happens in that movie is the fucking daughter's fault.
It's coming out.
That's all I gotta
Amazon
say.
Prime in April.
Nah, I got on Voodoo, so I'll see you later.
Yeah. So just remember that.
All right.
That fucking little asshole. Sorry.
Yeah. But no, I do feel like movies and also even TV shows like American Horror Story, for example.
Well, not recently. American Horror Story kind of fell off the map. I would say more like The Haunting on Hill House has been the biggest thing.
Exactly. I was going to go that direction too. Is like a lot of like Netflix like horror shows, and even on Shudder has been getting like a lot of. Even though they're still struggling to get their name out there. Which, by the way, Shudder. If anyone from Shudder is listening, we'd love to sponsor you.
Yeah.
Get sponsored by you. There's a difference.
But yeah, there's that, and then also Netflix has been adding a lot of like old horror movies. Like this April, they're adding a shit ton of Friday the 13th.
Yeah,
and they're also the only place I could find Jason Goes to Hell. Like all the like even the movie bundles, like you can get all the Jason movies, Friday the 13th movies or whatever. That's the only one they won't have in the collection, and it pisses me off because I'm like, it's not a collection if they're not all there now, are they? Fucking communists.
I mean, do we have to include Jason X in that?
No.
Yes, you do.
Like
because Jason Goes to Hell shows that Freddy is in the same place, and Jason X is the lead up to Freddy versus Jason.
Fair enough.
Just saying.
Fair enough. We need a sequel to Jason versus Freddy.
I know. I really want one.
I remember when that was the biggest thing too. It was like there was all this talk about the verses because like Jason versus Freddy, and then like Alien versus Predator, and then there was talk of one.
Well, that's when the comics started doing Civil War too. Was around that time.
Well, and there was this joke one that I wanted to see happen because I know it'd be good. Was a Wishmaster versus Leprechaun.
I want to see Chucky versus Michael Myers.
Oh, that'd be good.
No, Chucky versus Ghostface.
Or no. Or I would say Chucky versus Puppet Master.
No, okay, so the reason why I want to see Chucky versus Ghostface, because Ghostface is just regular people, like, going on a murder spree.
So you're thinking,
and so, like, he's, like, calling up, and then, like, Chucky picks up the phone one time.
Yeah.
And, like, the Ghostface killer has no fucking idea he's talking to a doll. And then he comes around in the Ghostface mask and sees that Chucky's on the phone. He's like, what? You can just see, like, Ghostface freak the fuck out. Like, too real, man! Like, too real!
It'd be like the best comedy slasher fic we've ever gotten.
Exactly.
Oh, okay, I see where you're going with it. That'd be hilarious.
Because, like, it'd be so good. Because the entire movie, like, Chucky's killing people and Ghostface is killing people. And their murders are getting, like, crossed.
Yeah.
So, like, people think that Ghostface is killing the people that Chucky did and vice versa. And Chucky's just getting more and more pissed off. Because he's like, I want my credit. Like, he's like, I want to get credit for what I'm doing.
And that we're talking about, that would make sense because, like, the Scream movies definitely have that meta humor.
Exactly. And
it would
Chucky
work really
started
well.
leading towards that, especially with Bride of Chucky and Seed of Chucky.
Yeah.
So
I could see it. I could see it.
Right before the climax, like, they never fight each other because, like, Ghostface isn't a mythical being. He's just another person, like, just dressed up wanting to get famous or whatever. And so he's on the phone. He, like, pops out behind the curtain. He's like, I'm gonna fucking murder. What the fuck? And you just see Chucky, like, holding the phone. He's just like, what?
they would have to fight, and it, like, their final fight would have to, like, their confrontation would have to be, like, this badass one where, like, they're fighting in some sort of, like, public place. Like, trying to hunt down the same person, and it becomes this big thing where they have to start killing all the witnesses while fighting each other. Like, that would be fucking sick.
See, I think it'd be sick with either that or, like, they have a fight in the house and it's just Ghostface, like, running away from Chucky because he's freaking out so much. Like, I just wanted to get famous. I just wanted to be famous.
I would also say, like, one that I would love to see come to fruition that's already been made a comic for is the Ash versus Jason versus Freddy series. Like, Ash from Evil Dead. Like, because, like, the comics actually are really good. Like, they make a really good story about it, too. And, like, there's a scene where, like, Freddy Krueger fucks with Ash by, like, making him think, like, his arm is back, and then he detaches it again. Like, he puts Ash in a nightmare.
Yeah.
Like, it's just, not arm, I should say hand. But it's just good. I don't know, Billy, what do you think?
I have no fucking clue. I don't watch many of those movies. I'm more of a gamer, and that's what I went to college for, was video game design.
You know what? And that's what we're talking about today. So we should jump to it. Is we're talking about horror and video games part 2. We're gonna, we went already all over it, and so we're gonna jump into it. We got a listener participation corner. We got a big one. Do we want to do that now? Do we want to do that at the end?
I think we should do that now, just because I think our conversation is gonna get a little more in depth than we realize it's going to.
More than likely.
Do you want to? I don't know. We got like 20 comments on Twitter. Well, I really want to see if I could get through all of them. I don't know. What do you think?
Twitter's a little shorter. I know your Facebook is a lot longer,
Yeah.
so I think we should all start with Twitter.
Okay.
All right, start with Twitter.
So we asked everyone, Listener Interpretation Corner, we want to know what are some of your favorite horror-themed video games and why. Do you feel yours hasn't gotten the attention it deserves? Let us know and comment below, and we'll read them on Monday's upcoming episode. And so, starting off from William Schimpert at Better Brains B, Eternal Darkness, Sanity's Requiem for the GameCube, introduced me to H.P. Lovecraft. And then from Destiny the Zombie Lover at... I just lost his name. At Destiny. Sorry. Or hers.
Yeah,
Parasite
did you
Eve.
assume their gender? You fucking son of a bitch.
Parasite Eve. It did such a good job of pulling you in, keeping you playing, and about setting your pants. I think they meant like about shitting your pants.
Setting.
It's set.
After you play the game, you want to make sure your pants are
nice and
just
set.
nicely folded.
A nice
and
crisp
put at the foot of your bed, so when you wake up, you be like, well, I shit myself. Good thing I have an extra pair of pants.
I just down the damn toilet. Got the whole fucking thing right there.
They finished saying, I actually
Not
played
all
this.
of us have those luxuries, Billy.
I don't either. I just pretend.
You're just sitting on the toilet, like, pretending you're playing video. Ah! Oh.
No, I got the controller and I wait to hear the nasty scream like, well, I'm dead.
They finished off saying, I actually played this before Resident Evil, and it will always be my favorite. From Melissa R. Mendelson at Melissa Mendelson. They said, I love playing Resident Evil, but I really love playing The House of the Dead because I was good at it. That was a long time ago. And I made the point to her, like, that was probably one of the first, like, horror games where you could be in the driver's seat of a B horror movie.
Yeah, especially House of the Dead Overkill.
Yeah.
That was my favorite.
Oh, God. We'll talk about that in a second.
Yeah.
From Possessed Radio, at Possessed Radio, I'm a horror gaming fanatic, but since you don't need 1,000-item lists, the recent Resident Evil 2 remake rocks.
Hey.
We agree. Robina the Wolf Dog at Spuddy Disco said, probably the first Dead Space for me always does a great job at scaring the ever-living shit out of me. I think it's one of those games that has received a good amount of attention. And I don't know if they, like, mean it hasn't received a good amount of attention or they just straight up do mean it has received. Because I would disagree a little bit because I do feel like it deserves more attention and deserves a resurrection.
Yep.
From
He has something afterwards.
Oh, okay. From Misshaped McGillicuddy at Chuck U Farless, Splatter fucking House, which I agree.
You know what? I'm actually disappointed I never played the new one.
Oh, well, yeah, no, I agree.
The new one's a lot more action-y.
Yeah.
The horror's not really there anymore.
I know, but still, you gotta shove your arm up an anus and rip out their insides from it.
That's going to be a subject that we
Sounds
come
like
back
Duke
to.
Nukem also.
No, Duke Nukem peed in their eye sockets and then kicked it.
So from Just Horror at Just Horror Blog, Lust for Darkness is an incredible horror mystery game. Beautiful graphics, great scares. No idea why it's not as popular as I feel it should be. Has a very Call of Cthulhu vibe. From, and I'm going to have a little trouble reading this one, is
Ew. What is it?
Wolf 54B1 German flag.
Gary!
Yeah,
That's
also
what it
known as
says.
Gary. At Wolf 54B1. Condemned criminal origins and fear come to mind.
Yeah, fear fucking scared the shit out of me.
Now, this one really surprised me because I didn't think anyone was going to mention this one, and she did. From Lydian Faust, at Lydian Faust, the Amnesia games and The Park are my favorite walking sim games.
Amnesia.
No.
The Dark Descent.
The Park. I'm surprised she mentioned The Park. Like, that was really one of those, like ones that got hidden and, like...
I've never heard of it.
Exactly. It got that buried, and it shouldn't have. From Mikey-C at RHC Marvel 1. The original Resident Evil remake is my all-time fave game. The Resident Evil 2 remake is amazing, but the original had the fixed camera that made it really creepy. Also, Dead Space. From, and we're all going to love this one, Tequila at Tequila Chow. I just love that name. Tequila.
As long as it's not Tequila.
If it was Tequila commenting on her shit.
Dude,
like,
I don't know how I'd feel about that.
I don't know either. Like, yay?
Yay. You
I
Nazi anal lover?
Alien Isolation did not have the commercial success it deserved. It's one of the best
That's
console
very
horror
true.
games.
I'll agree with that. Alien Isolation definitely should have gotten more light.
And you're going to love this one. From Michelle Enelin at Fallen 468. House of the Dead Overkill.
Yeah,
I love that game.
Most games. So good.
Most games, I shouldn't waste your time, but this one is crazy fun. There's also Typing of the Dead. I've never heard of another game quite like it, and I agree. Andrew,
I hated that game. I hated it so much.
Typing of the Dead?
Yeah, because I'm not that good at typing, so I'm like sitting here like chicken
Well, that's the whole point
chicken
of it.
pecking, and I'm like,
That's the whole point, is to get you better at typing.
no, fuck that.
Shit, everything's voice command now. Fuck typing.
I know.
Well, back in the day, that's how it was.
So except for like the one random words where they didn't do actual words, they just did random like letters, and you're just like, don't make me out of that. Just fucking kill it.
So from Andrew Cameron at Andrew Cameron, I think Fatal Frame was a seriously underrated horror-themed game. Unique concepts, some seriously creepy moments, and environments
Stealing your shit,
with
Billy.
a fairly interesting story. Also, Prey never gets enough love.
Prey? Yeah,
Yep.
I fucking love Prey.
From CMDR, DNA Decay at DNA Decay, Stalker, and Alien Isolation. And then
Stalker's another one that no one really talks about.
Oh,
That's
and
a good one.
And I loved horror movie podcasts. So they gave us 3 responses in the form of GIFs, and I take it as like a kind of challenge. So they showed us Friday the 13th.
As long as it's not the
Castlevania.
original one.
No, I think they are saying the original.
The original NES one? Fuck that game.
Altered Beasts and Castlevania, which surprisingly, yeah, like Castlevania is straight up like
Oh yeah, you're killing Dracula.
and no one really thinks about it either. And then I think we're running out of time. I need a I'm not gonna have time to say all the other ones. I try to get through all of them. I'm really sorry, everyone. But thank you for participating on Twitter, but over on our Facebook.
Yeah, I was gonna say we gotta give the Facebook people some light.
Yeah. Sorry, I was really trying.
Whatever. Zachary said Eternal Darkness 2002, too much surprise because Resident Evil was already well known. What made it so great was that in the game you had a sanity gauge, and if you let the gauge go down to empty, it would cause really gruesome things to happen. Things like your head would fall off, you would turn into the monster you were fighting, or room would become quicksand. It also takes you through different areas of time, which showed all kinds of different monsters. Agreed. Splatterhouse 2 from 1992 was the most amazing game when I was younger. I came across it this is from Ian. Sorry. I came across it just at the age when I first started getting into horror in general. It was the goriest game I had ever seen, and with Friday the 13th being part of my horror foundation, the fact the main character has a mask on as well, I just imagined I was a hero version of Jason by Punk Rock Ian. Sorry, that's how I lol.
So real quick though, I do want to actually let me let you finish your other one because there's something about Punk Rock Ian I want to tell you about.
So James, he said Until Dawn because it changes depending on your choices, and The Evil Within because it brings a psychological aspect of horror. I agree, but I still argue Evil Within 2 is a lot better.
I felt like Evil Within 2 is a lot more actiony than the first one.
Yeah, but the thing is that like I felt like it was a lot more blended well, because with the first one you went from shitting your pants, and the one thing that I hated the most about it was the fact that you had to burn the bodies. So like if that took that part out, I think it'd be a lot better. But it also goes from shitting your pants to heavy action to shitting your pants to heavy action. Like throughout the whole first Evil Within, it was basically Resident Evil 4 with more of a stealth. But then Evil Within 2 just kind of finally like melded it all together into one thing. So like it was, even though it was a little bit more actiony, like you still had all the tense horror sections from it, because like the creatures were freaky as fuck, and they actually had like the little spider things that crawled through the grass. So you just see the grass moving. You're like, nope, I'm done. I'm going up in this cargo hold and hiding there.
So fun fact real quick. So from Ian, Punk Rock Ian, he's actually, shout out to him because he's one of our early supporters when we started the podcast.
Yeah, that's true.
So if you have YouTube, Punk Rock Ian is a streamer. He streams like classic NES games, and he does a lot of them. I've watched a few of his videos, and I still do. He's fun to watch. He's one of the few streamers I do watch, and he's really underappreciated. If you're on YouTube and you like to watch gaming streamers, please check out Punk Rock Ian. He's a sweet guy, and honestly, just from like looking through a computer screen, like I would love to have him come hang out with us sometime.
Yeah.
So, shout out to Punk Rock Ian, and shout out to all of our participants in the listener participation quarter. Thank you, everyone. All these discussions are still going on our Twitter at officialprhp and our Facebook Punk Rock Horror Podcast. I mean,
James. So I'm gonna make sure that's a thing on here. It's like, and no matter what, I'm just gonna keep saying and James participation.
And James. But thank you to all of you. Seriously, kind
of make him feel special.
Like it was a little overwhelming.
He's our buddy.
Yeah, it was a little overwhelming how many people like replied, but like in a good way, overwhelming. Mm-hmm. Like thank you. Now going over to Billy Fussy Toes. Now I want to do another intro for him really quick. So we've been working pretty closely with Billy Toes, and we're working with him to hopefully start a show on the Punk Rock Horror Podcast. Now, I'm not going to go into full detail. Everything's a little like tight-knit at the moment. We want it to be a surprise. He wants it to be a surprise. But this is your intro to Billy Fuzzy Toes. Billy Fuzzy Toes, as he said, was getting a degree in game design, is an artist, and is a close friend of ours. Billy, take it away with your point of view.
All right, guys. So, with horror games in general, the biggest thing that makes a good horror game a horror game is the tension and release cycle. So, most horror video games are psychological, and if they did it right, the game designers only have to put in 30% of work to build up the tension, because the psychological aspect, your brain actually does 70% of the work to build up the tension.
Right.
And once the tension happens, that's when the release cycle comes in. It's like, okay, you're going through this damn hallway for about 5 minutes. Weird sounds are happening.
Resident
like
Evil 2.
Yeah, that first hallway.
Yeah.
Like, once that action happens, then is the release cycle, because right then you have that safe space, that little camera room right off to the side.
Yeah.
So a good game will have good tension and release cycles, unlike Doom, where it's just demon after demon.
So,
that's another horror game, but it's an action horror game.
Yeah.
So, a good horror game will have slow pacing, because, if it's a quick game like Halo, you can get through that in like 3 or 4 hours. The first Resident Evil 2, you're going to go 8 hours the first time. Beat it again, you can do it in 6 hours. So you know what's happening. But unlike Halo and Resident Evil, Halo, you got these big areas for tactical advantages. Oh no, my shield gone down.
Yeah.
Now I got to go hide and recharge it. Resident Evil, in other horror games, if they've done it right, need to be claustrophobic. So that means you don't have any room, little to no room to dodge.
Yeah.
Little to no room to do anything. You have to be in a tight space to do what you need to do to get out of that situation, whether it's shoot a zombie in the knee and then get the hell out, or shoot it in the head a couple times, make sure it's dead, so when you have to keep coming back in through the room, so where Resident Evil 5 falls flat is the lighting.
Because it's too
Africa.
bright. Yeah.
They only had one real scary section, was that underground waterway. That was the only scary section of the game.
I would argue that the other tense, scary situation of the game, and maybe it's not in the waterway, is when you first get introduced to, I forget what they call it, but it's like that black tar monster, and you have thing. And you have to trap it in the incinerator. Monster. You have to trap it in the incinerator. That was, honestly, not gonna lie, pretty tension high, terrifying the entire time, because you can't kill it with bullets. You have to literally burn it alive.
But what I'm getting at is the lighting aspect of it.
No, I was just adding into what other points in that game are dark. But before we dive into the history, Billy, what's 1 or 2 games that you love? I know you have a whole list with you, and we're going to touch on all of them. But
so, Dead Space 1 is definitely one of my favorite ones.
Right.
And I think if they got that revived, it needs to have a VR mode.
Oh, agreed.
Holy no.
Agreed.
Yeah. No.
Yes.
No.
I'm going to say yes.
Okay, Resident Evil 7 VR is the scariest thing in the fucking world. I don't need Dead Space VR.
Yeah, but we have one set in a farm setting. Now we need one in a space setting.
Play Alien Isolation VR then. Poop yourself that way.
Is that a thing?
I don't need... I think so.
No, not yet.
It's not... Son of a bitch!
So see there, Dead Space VR.
No!
I mean, they kind of had it with that Wii game that they came out with, but it was a rail shooter.
Yeah.
I still wanted to play it because it looked interesting, but
it was fun. I didn't play it on the Wii. I played it on the PlayStation.
Anyways, sorry, Billy. What's your other one?
And my other one, I hadn't played it, but I love watching other people play it, would be DayZ, that online multiplayer one.
Is that the Battle Royale one?
It's the Battle Royale zombie game.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I know what you're
so
talking
it's
about.
You had the other, you got the pre-programmed zombies, all the other monsters.
And then the people.
And then the other people. But the other people is what really scares the shit out of you, because, AI enemies have a preset path that they have to follow according to their programming. Players do not. Players can do whatever the hell they feel like within the programming that the game allows.
Mm-hmm.
Nope. Yeah, I've seen some gameplay footage of I'm pretty sure it was DayZ. Now that we're talking about it, thinking about it, it's like this guy making like these 3 other players like crawl on their stomachs.
Yeah.
Oh no, that was H1Z1.
Okay,
Yeah.
I know there's confusion because of like a whole legal battle and like copyrights between DayZ and H1Z1. I know
DayZ
that was
is the better one.
yeah. So yeah, let's jump into
What about you, Matt?
For me, oh yeah.
They want to know more about us too.
Whoa, calm down, man. So, for me, probably my early horror games, and like, I'm gonna choose 2 now, but I am gonna rehash the first one I chose, is still the Legacy of Kain series. Like, I don't talk about it enough, and I feel I should, because that saga is actually fucking phenomenal. It's one of the only good vampire lores that I will argue stands the test of time, and it deserves far more attention for it. Mm-hmm. Like, if you hate Twilight, if you hate that whole, like, kind of, like, vampires falling in love with humans thing, Legacy of Kain is the way you want to go. It's straight up, like, just, like, vampire lore. It's fucking awesome. It's gothic, it's Victorian age, and it's such a badass series. And it's not, like, super scary, but it is terrifying in the sense that it uses its horror themes to express its characters. I mean, you'll have people getting, like, whether it's guts being ripped out or like characters who have been mutilated still standing, and there's so much to talk about with it that it would need its own episode. But the other one that I really loved, that I know that no one ever talks about anymore, is The Suffering. I loved The Suffering. The first game, like it's a little choppy now because it's just so like Xbox 360 kind of through graphics. It's choppy, but it was such a cool game because it was like the more your insanity meter rose in that, you turned into this hulking mutant behemoth, and that's when you felt powerful. But when you weren't powerful and you weren't in that mode, you felt far more vulnerable to like all the monsters and demons running around trying to kill you. Mm-hmm. It was a really like unique take on video games and like horror video games too, because it's like it transitioned from making you feel vulnerable to having a savior ammo to giving you like OP power, and so like gave you a much more heart attack oh shit moment, in my opinion. Cody, what about you?
Lately, Resident Evil 2, and also Bendy and the Ink Machine. I fucking love that game. I know it's like the new FNAF.
No, it's okay.
Thing right
it's the
now.
better FNAF.
Yeah, but like the fact that you're not just sitting in the thing, you have to go through this entire place, and the entire time you're going through it, it's like you're thinking of Steamboat Willie, old Disney cartoons and stuff.
Yeah, black and white and stuff like that.
And so you're like, oh, okay. And well, it's all orange except for the ink.
It's sepia.
Yeah, except for the ink.
Sepia.
Well, that's the correct term for it.
No, it's just funny. It's just funny.
Sorry, I didn't know I needed to paint my nails and get a perm today, Billy, to get the fucking color right.
It's just like you're
my bad.
It's just funny because I'm like black and white, and most people are gonna think black and white, but because you have like the art degree, everybody's just like, it's sepia. Okay.
Well, that's the correct vernacular for it.
Anyways, so like it's that, and so you walk through. There's not a whole lot of like you do get to be able to fight back against the monsters until Bendy the demon comes in when he's all like wigged out. Which the first time I saw that, like I freaked the fuck out. I woke Audrey up because I wasn't expecting it. Like usually I'm a little prepared for things like that, but like just that I don't know. They just did it so well, and it was just so unexpected because you're just seeing all these like little happy like bendy devils, and then all of a sudden just goes and like comes out of the wall or some shit. I was like ah, and all of a sudden he's here. I was just like, sorry, Audrey.
It's like the first time you saw those damn dogs in the very first Resident Evil game.
Yeah, I pooped myself. But one that I'm really, really fucking excited to play here soon is Observer. It's on the Switch. I'm sure it's on other titles too, but I just know it's on the Switch. But it's basically take like Blade Runner. Like, it's basically Blade Runner the game, but you put, like, all the horror elements into it.
Oh, that cyberpunk horror game.
Yeah, it's a cyberpunk horror game, and basically what you're doing is you jack into the person's mind, so you, like, plug into their brain, basically. You're a private detective. Observer. It has one of the guys from
I know
Blade
I've heard
Runner
of this
in
game.
it.
I know I've heard of this game.
Like, you play as him, and so you plug into their brain and you see everything that happened to them before they died and stuff like that. And you play as them. It looks so fucking good. And the cool thing, because I watched a small video about it, is that everything, all the building the building that you're in for the most of the game is real. It's in Russia. And like they like mapped out the entire building, the corridors and everything to the T, and then just put the whole game in it. Like that's what I think is really cool, and I'm excited to play it once I'm done with Bendy.
Right on, man. It sounds like we got a lot of solid choices. Again, I'm still like Observer. I know I've heard of that one, and I just like it's wanting to come to mind, but I can't think of it.
It's a cyberpunk mystery horror game.
I know I've heard. Anyways, we should jump into it. I'm sorry. So we're gonna jump into it. So we're gonna talk about horror video games, also known as survival horror, which is a
Not all are survival horror.
What?
It's not all survival horror. That's a different subject.
But we're talking about the history of it. This is where it's
I know, I'm just saying.
Okay. So survival horror is a subgenre of video games inspired by horror fiction that focuses on survival of the character as the game tries to frighten players with either horror graphics or scary ambiance. Although combat can be part of the gameplay, the player is made to feel less in control than the typical action games through limited ammunition, health, speed, and vision, or through various obstructions of the player's interaction and within the game's mechanics. The player is also challenged to find items that unlock the path to new areas and solve puzzles and to proceed the game. Games make use of strong horror themes like dark maze-like environments or the unexpected attacks from enemies. The term survival horror was first used for the original Japanese release of Resident Evil in 1996, which was influenced by earlier games with horror themes such as 1989's Sweet Home and 1992's Alone in the Dark. The name has been used since then for games with similar gameplay and has been retroactively applied to earlier titles.
An early example was Nostromo, which it was a survival horror game developed by Akira Takiguchi, a Tokyo University student and Taito contractor, for the PET 2001. It was ported to the PC 6001 by Masakuni Mitsuhashi, also known as Hiromi Ohba.
Choose one.
I don't know what to tell you, man. Later joined Game Arts and published by ASC2 in 1981, exclusively for Japan. It was inspired by the 1980 stealth game Manabiki, right? Yeah, Shouju, and the 1979 sci-fi horror film Alien. The gameplay of Nostromo involved a player attempting to escape a spaceship while avoiding the sight of an invisible alien, which only becomes visible when peering in front of the player. Yeah, that's poop-inducing.
So, another early example is the 1982 Atari 2600 game Haunted House. Gameplay is typically of future survival horror titles as it emphasizes puzzle solving and evasive action, rather than violence. The game uses monsters commonly featured in horror fiction, such as bats and ghosts, each of which have unique behaviors. Gameplay also incorporates item collection and inventory management, along with areas that are inaccessible until the appropriate item is found. Because it has several features that have been seen in later survival horror games, some reviewers have retroactively classified this game as the first in its genre. And then with that, Malcolm Elvin's 3D Monster Maze. What did I say?
Elvins.
Sorry.
Malcolm
Evans' 3D Monster Maze released for the Sinclair ZX81, which I haven't heard that in a while, in 1982, is a first-person game without a weapon. The player cannot fight the enemy, a Tyrannosaurus Rex, so they must escape by finding the exit door before the monster finds them. The game states its distance and awareness of the player, future raising tension.
You know, I read that and I'm like thinking of like the technology back in the day.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like mind-boggling that Slender Man wasn't like made back then.
Weird.
Like,
I was thinking the
same thing. That, like Slender Man's new.
Hey Billy, we got a last note here. Do you want to read it or do you want us to read it?
Why not? Slide that shit right on over.
He can actually be involved.
Alright, where the fuck am I at?
Unlike
right here.
The success of Resident Evil in 1996 was responsible for its template being used
making
as
it harder for him.
the basis of the wave of successful survival horror games, many of which were referred to as Resident Evil clones. The golden age of survival horror, started by Resident Evil, reached its peak around the turn of the millennium with Silent Hill, followed by the general decline of a few years later. Among the Resident Evil clones at the time, there were several survival horror titles that stood out, such as Clock Tower 2, The Struggle Within. For the PlayStation, these Clock Tower games provided to be hits, capitalizing on the success of Resident Evil while staying true to the graphic adventure gameplay of the original Clock Tower rather than following the Resident Evil formula.
I was gonna flip my shit if they said Clock Tower was a fucking Resident Evil clone, because I was like, it's nothing like it.
Well, here's a little fun fact. Resident Evil isn't the original title. It goes by another title in
Biohazard.
Japan. Yeah, Biohazard. But they
Biohazard.
had to change it for the American audience because they feared that they wouldn't buy the games here in America if it went by the name Biohazard.
So,
you know what's really... Sorry, just like... You know what's really funny about the title Resident Evil, though? The only one that's technically true to that title is Resident Evil 7. Because it's the only one where you take place in an actual residence.
Right. That's not evil. Even a true residence because it's on its own land.
No, I know, but like I just think that's what's funny about it.
Splitting
but then they were also like, you know what? Let's just throw in the actual real name of the Resident Evil series, Biohazard, in there just to see what happens. And everyone's like, oh yeah, makes sense.
And that's funny is that is the most successful revival game of any horror game out there.
Oh yeah, Resident Evil 7 is fucking fantastic.
So I think we're on the right track here. Of what we're talking about is I mean, one thing. This was a massive like research I did, and I did cut out some games. So if you didn't hear like names like Silent Hill as much as you should have, just know that I did want to include those, but I had to shorten it just for the episode's sake.
So I will fight to the death saying Silent Hill is a Resident Evil.
And you know what? Okay,
that is not.
I would say Resident Evil 2 is much better than the first one.
So I want to go off there. So remember when this game demo, which I will also argue is probably one of the best marketing schemes for a game ever. PT, which was the prelude to a Silent Hill game that was supposed to come out starring Norman Reedus. Silent Hills, exactly, with Guillermo del Toro and it's not shit. Kojima, thank you, Hideo Kojima.
And that company can go fuck itself.
Yeah,
Konami.
Fuck Konami. And so, like, let's talk about that. So PT was like all over YouTube, all over Facebook, like video
as a demo.
Yeah, as a demo. Gameplay footage of it was everybody was talking about this. Everybody was wanting to play it. It was one of the most terrifying demos that anyone has ever played. And sorry, I want to make it a round circle. And so what I want to finish off is, you know, obviously horror and horror video games is still a money making mainstay of media. So where does everyone feel about this? Do we think that you know, let's just talk about it. I'm not going to make a question.
I'll say, you know what's really funny about that too is that that people are selling their PS4s with PT still downloaded on it because you can't download it anymore.
No.
And they're selling it for $3-4 grand. And the longest lifetime of one of those PlayStations was an hour. So every time one goes up, it is bought within the hour.
And again, the three names that are attached to it, Norman Reedus, Guillermo del Toro, and the biggest one on there, Hideo Kojima.
Hideo.
Sorry.
God, you were into Japanese culture before me, and I know how to pronounce it.
Either way, though.
Figgy?
But you don't see those many names attached to the title. Now, to be fair, he is coming out with a game called Death Stranding.
Which we still have no idea what the hell that's about.
I'm nervous about that game.
But the thing that tops the cherry on this is that we found out that this was going to be a Silent Hill title. A Silent Hills now, which is called, or would have been called, and that's a big thing because for a long time, Silent Hill was looked at as the competitor for Resident Evil. And it was seen that way. Now, to be fair, Resident Evil until Homecoming and Resident Evil has kind of overcome it with its multiple movies, CG and live action, and its games, and then coming back with Resident Evil 7, Resident Evil 4, and Silent Hill's hit and miss track record.
So, you know what sucks about the movie-wise, I would argue the first Silent Hill movie is 10 times better than all the Resident Evil movies.
Oh, agreed.
Because even if you have no idea what Silent Hill is, the video game or whatever, and you go see that movie, it stands out as its own. It does just enough fan service because that's the point of Silent Hill. Like, you can't do a Silent Hill movie without the creatures and the town flip-flopping. So but with Resident Evil, I feel like The first Resident Evil movie is still the best, in my opinion, because it did just the right amount of fan service.
Right.
While all the other ones just started, instead of taking it off as its own, it tried to be its own series, but still throwing all the characters from Resident Evil.
Right.
You know, I for one of those Silent Hill movies, I would have loved an after credit scene with that dog in the control room.
Oh my god, that'd be great. See, that's what I was hoping was going to be the end of the third one if they ever did it. But the second one was so bad. It was terrible.
Well, see, that's where it would have been perfect to put the dog, because then it's the damn dog's fault the movie sucks so damn much.
See little Shiba Inu.
Very meta.
Dude, it's just going bork, 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 bork.
But no, I agree, and that's is kind of like a real tragedy in the sense.
I got caught.
Well, and I agree.
You're being bamboozled.
And that's kind of like a real tragedy of the first one, of the first Silent Hill, is that it is such a well-made horror film that does not get enough credit. And we've done a review on it. If you haven't listened to it before, I think it's episode 6 on our catalog. I might just put a link in so you guys can listen to it.
Yeah, it's a really good movie.
It's good, and one thing that's happened with a lot of like horror games that has separated its audience is that they become more action oriented, and you see that a lot in Resident Evil movies too. Like they become far more action focused.
Oh yeah, like
I mean, they still keep their horror roots.
See, that's the funny thing. So like the first one was straight up horror, like the very first Resident Evil movie, straight up horror. Like they were trying to make an actual 2000s horror movie.
Yeah.
Which, let's be honest, 2000 horror movies are terrible.
Yeah, it was.
But still enjoyable. And
They're enjoyable.
Like,
but then they go to this. And then they go Resident Evil Apocalypse, which everyone was so excited for that movie. Like I was so excited it was gonna. Like I thought it was gonna be a straight up horror movie with fucking Nemesis there, throwing the small set pieces that they did in the game.
Oh,
like
Nemesis! I don't think Apocalypse was it?
Yeah,
I could have sworn
they threw Nemesis. They did Nemesis
was
way
Nemesis
too
in
early.
Apocalypse?
Yeah.
I gotta find out. Anyways, go ahead.
Because of the
second one.
Yeah, the second one. It was Apocalypse.
Oh, okay.
They
Yeah,
did
yeah,
Nemesis.
he's right.
Because the Mila Jovovich character, what's her name? Alice. Her character's boyfriend, because they were about to like be boyfriend and girlfriend at the end of the first one, is starting to turn into Nemesis at the end of the first one. So they did the second one with Nemesis, and it was just they turned it into such a B-rated campy action movie. Like, don't get me wrong, I still enjoyed it.
Right.
I had fun with it, but like they just ruined so much of what could have been a horror. Like they actually had the entire city for once. Like it could have been what World War Z wanted to be, like originally, with this, the attention of all the zombies in the city and stuff. And then the third one went back to more horror-esque with small bits of action, but that's what hurt it. It was because you went from like this super action movie to now all of a sudden they want to take it a slower horror movie. And then the one after that one more action. Like they kept flip-flopping instead of just going straight with it all, and that's what I was really disappointed with.
And like it's not like action horror can't be bad. Like Resident Evil 4 is probably one of those few games that was able to balance both really well. Like it was an overtop action game, but also had its like terrifying, scary moments. I mean, we could talk about the Lurcher and the Leeches in there, but
it was the setting. So the thing I like about Resident Evil 4 is the very beginning was straight up horror. Like, yeah, I had the action elements, but it was survival horror because you're in the town, you're getting swarmed, you had the, like, chainsaw dude. But when you get into the castle, that's when it turned into more B-movie action because, like, you know, oh, no, it's Wolfenstein set in Resident Evil universe.
Well, see, what I think really works about that is because you already had Leon Kennedy in Resident Evil 2. So by this point, he's already experienced dealing with this shit.
Yeah. So it made more sense of why he was like a little bit more adept to take it out.
But it still kept with its like scare root tactics. Like probably one of the few sequences in that game that scared the living shit out of me. And our close friend Nate was there with me at the time. Was when you were walking through the maze. The garden maze, and those wolves would just pop out of nowhere, scare the living shit out of us. I'm not gonna lie, I went through a whole clip of SMG ammo just to kill one.
See, what got me was when you're walking through the sewers and the right hand he just pops down. That's what got me. Like, I was just like, son of a bitch!
Well, what I wish would have been a constant theme through that is when you save that dog at the very beginning of the game and it helps you with that
it helps you out throughout the field.
Fight. Like, why didn't it help you out throughout the game?
Yeah, that would have been cool.
Yeah, because anytime you have a dog companion makes it the greatest game in the world.
Well, and that's what was so great about the game is that it was not only just a love letter to Resident Evil fans, but it was a love letter to horror fans and action fans. It was probably one of those few games that was able to really encompass all those elements really, really well, and it kept you coming back.
And what I think is that they really did keep the dog. There was something that you would have been attached to that thing. You know, maybe they could have old Yeller, the little bastard.
Yeah,
and make you really feel real dark about that game. And it's like, oh shit! Now I'm really gonna kill you, son bitch.
Now I would hate the game after that. If, like, all of a sudden the dog was like turning into like one of the mutant dogs, and he looks at you like, and you're like, no,
get all I Am Legend on it.
Well, and the other thing that we don't see though in horror video games that I will say is that we don't see a focus on a specific lore. So, and I'm going to bring up Legacy of Kain for this example, is because Legacy of Kain, as I said, is a whole focus on vampire lore, and you see this whole gothic lore and of Cthulhu-esque themes play out throughout it, and for some reason those titles don't do as well as they should. I mean, let's look at Call of Cthulhu. It's a raved game and it's underground, but because it always seems to be like even Cthulhu-esque games don't get enough love that they deserve. And why? You know, I think maybe it's just because when people think video games, they think action, but I don't know.
The thing that I'm going to argue about Call of Cthulhu is that the reason, like, it might be a decent game, but the reason why I think it's not nowhere near, because there's a huge outcry for a really good Cthulhu game. Like modern Cthulhu game, which the city that sinks is what it's called?
The sinking city.
The sinking city. So Call of Cthulhu is basically what the sinking city is going to be, because Call of Cthulhu went through three different or several. I'm not going to say three because I don't want to give an exact number. They went through several different studios. That one game went through several different studios, rehires, fires, all kinds of stuff, and rewrites. And so what it ended up being is, instead of being basically eternal darkness set in the universe of Cthulhu, they took all kinds of different. The last studio took all kinds of different H.P. Lovecraft stories, mashed it into one, and it's just super linear. And it was nothing how Call of Cthulhu originally was going to be.
And the hardest thing about these, you know, those kind of games is that, yeah, we want them, but thing is, with the lore and books and all of that that were already written, the fans of those are going to love it, but it's trying to introduce new people, more people into it who have no fucking idea what Cthulhu even is. They may have just heard the name and that's it.
They just know he's a squid monster.
Well,
yeah,
and
because of South Park.
But see, that's my thing. It's like, even Cthulhu aside, why can't we, like, we don't have enough games that focus on one specific lore and really emphasize that. So, like, and one thing that I'm really surprised that we've never had a game for is, like, a solid werewolf game. Like,
yeah, that's true, because the only solid werewolf game you have is Skyrim.
Well, and I'm not, and you could say Twilight Princess, but come on, be serious here.
That ain't even close. Maybe Order 1886.
Yeah, but even then, it's not even a werewolf game.
No, it's not a vampire game.
You have two werewolf fights, and then that's it.
Yeah,
and
like, nothing like how it was presented to be.
And so there's this one for
maybe
games.
That Sonic the Hedgehog game.
The Werehog?
Yeah, the Werehog.
Okay, the only thing that I'll give that game is that it gave birth to Sonic Colors, which is a fantastic 3D Sonic game.
So, but there's obviously this want, though, that we want more horror games, and so we got to kind of ask ourselves, why do we want to be in a game that's so terrifying and scares the shit out of us? And so, going back into a little bit...
I was going to say, before you did that, my personal opinion on it is I think it's mostly because we have so many of the other games. We have a yearly Call of Duty release. We have a yearly... Well, I don't know about anymore, but we had yearly Assassin's Creed games.
Yeah, they changed their model to every other year.
Yeah.
But right now, with the new one, Odyssey, they got a 2-year plan for that one. I mean, even the first DLC for it finally just came out, and they got 2 more seasons of DLC to come out. So,
but I think the reason why we want all these horror games is because it's really an untapped genre. Like, yeah, there's horror games, and there's action horror and survival horror, and, like, there's some really good ones, but they haven't touched nearly as much aspect in the horror genre. Like, you have the Until Dawn games where it goes from a slasher flick to more, like, you know, the Wendigos and stuff like that. But you don't have, like, a straight-up slasher game where you can play as the slasher, except for Friday the 13th and...
Manhunt.
No.
Dead by Daylight.
Dead by Daylight, yeah.
No, Manhunt, I would say, is more along the lines of, like, what Battle Royale really should be like.
Yeah, well, there's also Postal. That's just a messed up game entirely.
Yeah, that's not a horror game.
but it's still classified under that title, though.
Yeah. But I think it's just because, like, for instance, the want for a really good Cthulhu game or H.P. Lovecraft game, like, the best one, in my opinion, is Bloodborne. Like, that is the best H.P. Lovecraft game that is on the market.
Right.
And I think what it does is instead of, like, all the other H.P. Lovecraft games where they try and take 8 different fucking stories and mash it into one, it just does one story. And that's what, like, that's the, like, thing that's wrong with all of them is that instead of making games that are just based off of one story, like within them, like within H.P. Lovecraft, for instance, like they try and mash it all, and that's what ruins it. It doesn't make it scary, or just like makes it more confusing than anything.
Right.
So I think that's why it's because there's no top level horror games except for like a zombie game or lately Outlast 2, like the whole running Alien Isolation type stuff.
Yeah, and a lot of people didn't realize it was a Lovecraftian game because they just saw it as another Dark Souls clone.
Yep, until you beat it with the real ending and you get turned into a squid.
So jumping into the research on it, though,
Cthulhu.
in an article found on iflscience.com, which was originally published on The Conversation, discussed a study that was performed on 269 college students where their students played several horror games such as Resident Evil, Silent Hill, and Dead Space. Over half of the gamers experienced fear during play, and just over 40% reported that they enjoyed this fear. The study is a fascinating inquiry as to why we play video games and how they make us feel and what they make us feel.
All right, can I add something real quick to that? So when it came to Dead Space, it only had a 15% completion rate amongst all its players.
No shit.
Yeah.
That's right. I'm in the minority of beating it.
Hell yeah.
So adding into that, empathy, part of one of the emotions that so during the study, and I read this whole article on IFL Science and just picked some articles that I felt really stood out about it, which I recommend. Go to iflscience.com, check out this article. It's pretty well thought out. So one of the things that they asked the students, though, that the scientists asked the students is some of the emotions that they felt. And one of the emotions that was talked about was empathy. And empathy is when we share the thoughts and feelings of others. When we see someone scared or upset, that evokes the same emotional response in us. This allows us to sympathize with others and be compassionate. Lynch and Martins, which are the scientists who conducted this study, this study found that overall players with low empathy were more likely to play and enjoy horror games than those with high empathy levels. Those that can relate to negative emotions and others, such as fear, may seek to avoid feeling those negative emotions in fear-inducing games. Fear and anxiety may be increased in empathetic individuals, so they feel helpless and overwhelmed and are less able to disengage in the world. Do you want to finish it out?
Sure. While men and women players experienced the same frequency of fear and felt scared at the same times in a game, as shown by the monitor readings, men were less likely to admit being frightened. Instead, men emphasized how much they enjoyed playing horror games, putting on a brave front. Women were more likely to describe how scared they felt, being less rational and stoic about their fear response. Lynch and Martins concluded that this may be due to typical gender stereotyping. The effective presence, the immersive feeling of being in the game, was a factor in how scared people were because the player is the decision maker. Unlike a film where the viewer only passively observes the action unfold, rather than simply watching a person being chased by mutant zombies, the player was the person pursued, their life in their own hands, and consequently the outcome relies on their skills and quick thinking.
So one thing I do want to add is that why Dead Space became what it was because of the programming in it.
Yeah.
So, like we talked about a while ago, was you hated how unpredictable they were. But
I know, I hated that
so
well, it's not that I hate it, it's that it definitely scared the shit out of me.
Oh my god,
So,
like that beginning.
I appreciate it.
Yeah,
Sorry, I was going to say just because... Okay, so I watched one of our old good friends, Chris, play it. The cook.
Okay.
I always forget his last name. It's been so long since I talked to Chris. But anyway, so I watched him play it, and he showed me the beginning hour. And when I finally got and played my own copy, completely different. And I did not like that because I was like, all right, this guy's going to come through this window. Nothing.
So
I fucking hate this.
So the way that worked is how they programmed the game. So you had a room. There's 3 entrances.
Mm-hmm.
You got entrance 1, 2, and 3. If you came in on entrance 1, the enemies will appear let's say there's 4 spots. 1, 2, 3, and 4. If you came in through entrance 1, they'll pop in on 2 and 4. Well, if you came in on entrance 2, they'll pop on in 1 and 3. If you came in through room 3, they'll pop on at 4 and 3. So each room had predictive unpredictability enemy spawn times.
Right.
Fuck
So,
that.
and one of the other things is one of the rules they said is every scene had to be interactive. So that's why even the quote-unquote cut scenes, like when that tentacle grabbed you for that first time, it was interactive. The whole game had to be interactive from finish to start.
See, and that's what I loved about Dead Space is that because like Half-Life, that was the same thing with Half-Life, where you got to move around during the cutscenes and whatnot, like the cutscenes, quote unquote. And that's what I liked about the first Dead Space is it was just like that.
Yeah.
Because like that's why I like that he didn't talk.
Right.
Because like
But a lot of people didn't like that, so that's why I talked in the second game. So, Dead Space 2 actually has a record that no other game has set since that game came out. The opening cutscene for that game costed $1 million for the first 10 minutes of gameplay. You know when you're coming out with that.
I think that was $1 million well worth spent.
Yeah, and no other game has had set that record as far as I know. I could be wrong, but I've never heard another game having $1 million intro for their game.
It was good.
Yeah, I mean,
good.
it's kind of interesting when you think about it because it's like now reading that, it's like, yeah, we do get a little less scared of movies because we know somehow like the hero is in control of their own actions, right? But when you're actually playing the game, like if you die and get horribly murdered, it's your fault.
Yeah. But Dead Space 3 can go fuck itself.
So, okay, I enjoyed Dead Space 3
I did
when I
too,
first
but it
played
wasn't like the first two.
No, and like what sucks about it is there's so much potential, man. Like you're on an ice planet. Fucking seen a frozen necromorph and then not like they had you can see all the ideas. You can see what they really, really wanted.
Yeah.
You can see all of it,
co-op.
especially. Yep. Fuck the co-op, man. That's a game that should have never had co-op. Like, I'm sorry. If there's people that enjoyed the co-op, good for you. Twist your own titty. But, like, it just... Could you... Like, because I'm thinking, like, it had been so much better where they strictly made it a fucking first... Like, single-player game. Like, it should have been. And you're on a giant ice planet, and you just see all the necrophores digging through the ground and stuff like that, and popping up randomly at different areas. Or, like, you see them digging towards you, and then it just stops and they come out from somewhere else. Like,
Yeah, I lost it because all I could think of was the Zerg from StarCraft.
yeah, and I was just like, Zerg Rush, pew, 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 pew. Because, like, I ended up buying, like, a special edition of the third one, so I had, like, I never had to change out my gun. It was so OP. It was just a single fire rifle, but each bullet shot the time and slow thing.
Yeah.
And so, like, you just shoot 3 of them, and they're completely frozen, like, moving still. So that's all I did. So I was just like, Zerg Rush, freeze, 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 freeze. Dead.
So anyways, though, about horror games. Even though we have, like, only a minute now.
I know we can go a little over.
I don't even remember what I was going to add in now. I just had it.
My bad.
No, it's okay.
It's a poop bloop.
God, no, I think I was gonna go on to the subject of like that is just kind of interesting that when like the action's in your hands that you have to actually care a bit more.
Yeah,
where if it's like
agree.
someone you're watching running from a killer or running from a monster, it's like you kind of want them to die, but it's like you're kind of excited to where when you're playing. Like whether it's like Silent Hill or fucking Fatal Frame, like you want your character to survive because you don't want to lose all that progress you made.
I think it's partly that, and also because like when you play a video game, you kind of self-impose yourself into your character.
Yeah.
Like especially like in silent protagonists, like you put yourself there, and because you're controlling it, like you don't want to be like, I don't want to be horribly mangled. But when you're watching a movie, like. Go back to old slasher flicks, you want them to die because they're such shitty people. And like they really are. And then when you're playing a video game, even if you're the protagonist, like the character you're playing is a shitty person in general, you're kind of self-imposing yourself into that character, and you don't want to think yourself as a shitty human being. So you're like, I want to live, I have so much to give.
Yeah, if you don't feel vulnerable playing as that character, the game did not do its job
Exactly.
in making you feel scared and anxious and going, holy shit, what the hell's around that corner?
Yeah, so that's how I feel like when I'm playing Bendy. because the guy he used to work in a place where he drew old cartoons and created stories and stuff. And
he was Henry's old partner.
Yeah, and I related to that. I relate to the character because I used to love writing short stories. You know, I read comics, so like and I love old Disney cartoons. So like I like that character so much because like I feel for him. So I'm like, I don't want you to die, Simon. But like when I'm playing, which was it, Resident Evil 5, I didn't care that much, mostly because Chris Redfield's biceps were bigger than my entire top half. So I was like, you can handle this. You punch a boulder, for God's sakes.
Right.
It goes back to what makes a good horror game. You know, the lighting was shit, the atmosphere sucked, it was all open.
Yeah.
The tension and release cycle sucked ass.
Yeah, and then like that's what I think is the big difference, like with Chris Redfield and Leon Kennedy. Like, yeah, they're both established, but Chris Redfield, you're like, I could drop you pantsless into a combat zone and you'd still murder everyone. Leon Kennedy, you're like,
oh shit!
You might be sweating a little bit. Like, you can handle yourself, but I don't think you can take all of that.
Especially if you play as clear, then you're like, oh shit, I am so screwed.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
and it's like, if you give your character too many advantages, like that's when it becomes a little less terrifying. I mean, back in that game, it was like you could get like a grenade launcher, a high-powered SMG, and a high-powered sniper rifle, and you're kind of like okay for the most part.
yeah.
Where it's like a Resident Evil 4, it was just like, here's your pistol, learn to love it.
Yeah, that's how I'm trying to go through the Resident Evil 2 is pistol only.
Yeah, I'm gonna say, well, okay, so I don't know how it happened, but like I'm still shitting bricks when I pick up the game because I have a lot of pistol ammo, like a lot of pistol ammo, and I'm like, something's got to be coming. Like that's how I am at, and still fairly in the beginning. Like I haven't even met the actual liquor yet. I've heard it crawl across.
Oh, so I've gone farther than you.
Yeah, you're further than I am.
Because I got under the police station and
I'm not there yet. I've only collected one stone tablet.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So like I'm mostly just exploring right now, but like I still have shit ton of ammo, and I have my shotgun now too. But like. And the upgrade for the pistol to give it the longer, more ammo.
Yeah, the one thing I did is that I spent the $2 for the Samurai Edge gun, and that makes a big difference.
You would.
Yeah.
The second I just see you every time you play a game, and you're like, Samurai, it's mine.
No, just with that one is like the
Dibs.
only reason I got it is because it was much more powerful than the entry gun you got. I was like, screw it, I'm playing on easy mode. I'm going to be a crybaby bitch playing this game. I know that for sure.
Nope, I wanted to be a crybaby bitch.
Like, I'm still a crybaby bitch, but I got that little gun. But
I was saying when you I don't know. I think that's why. I think that's also why like everyone wants a good horror game is because you can sit here talking about it like how we are like and stuff, and no one. And when you talk about like Call of Duty, it's just everyone. So this is what I also noticed about horror games. More times than not, when you talk to someone about a horror game, they're gonna love it. Like, you know, there's someone who plays horror games like, yeah, I fucking love it. But whenever you talk to someone like who plays Fortnite religiously, Call of Duty religiously, even Battlefield religiously, they hate it. Like, they're like, I fucking hate this new Call of Duty game. So why'd you buy it? Because it's Call of Duty. Well,
dude,
like,
last
for
time
me,
I bought Call of Duty was the first Black Ops. I gave up after that.
Yeah, but see, for me, like, I hated the first Evil Within. Like, just something about it, is whether it's mechanics or like I already said earlier, the fact that you had to burn the bodies. I did not like it. But then I played Evil Within 2, and I fucking love that game. And I'm always willing to give a horror game another chance. Like with Resident Evil, I did not really care. I beat it, but I didn't care for Resident Evil 5. Resident Evil 6 is like I only play it because I play it with Dev because of the co-op. And then Resident Evil 7 came out, and I was like, I guess I gotta play it. Like, even though I knew I was gonna be terrified.
Well, I mean, Capcom's getting their shit together, but I do think when it comes to like horror video games and those creators, that they do listen to their fans a lot more than, like you said, Fortnite, Call of Duty, those type of game developers. I mean, shit's sakes, like Capcom has become a much more appreciated company, and like
because they killed it with Resident Evil 2, Resident Evil 7,
and then like their
Devil
other
May Cry
properties.
5 apparently is doing fucking amazing.
Yeah, and then
which
even
is
their
another.
other
I will
properties.
argue a horror game because it's definitely
it
horror
is.
based.
It's a horror game, and technically, since it was supposed to be the original Resident Evil 4. Gives it more of that aesthetic of it being the actual horror game. But no, it's definitely a horror gothic game.
You know, but the thing I really like about it the most is it's a little nerdy, but I really like how fluid the animation is in this one compared to the last one. Mm-hmm. It's just whoever they brought on to do the animations for this one killed it.
Which one?
The new one.
DMC5.
New Devil May Cry. Yeah.
So, but I think we're getting kind of like at the end of this. I mean, I don't know what else we can add into it. So, closing statements on what we feel about horror video game resurgence and what we think about it. Do you want to start off, Billy?
Yeah, I'll start off. One correction I'd like to make. I can kick Harrison's ass in Halo, so screw you, Harrison.
Headshot.
Our lovable official, non-official mascot.
But thing is, with horror games, they really need to get the formula right. You know, another Resident, call it a Resident Evil clone. If they got the right formula, don't mess with the formula. If it's right, it's right. Don't do Dead Space 3. It ain't horror. It's just a cash grab.
That's just fucking EA. And like that's what the other thing that sucks is that publishers will ruin a horror game that like the people are like, that company was like, no, this is going to be a great horror game. Well, it needs to be more action oriented.
Yeah, and then that's why Disney pulled the Star Wars EA license from EA and restarted Lucas Games.
Oh, I'm so excited about that.
So that's a topic for another day.
That would be in the something you love, something you hate on the next episode. I'm excited about the resurgence of horror games. One thing that I actually do really, really like about horror games also is that they're not this like 80, 60, 100 hour experience. Like
Skyrim?
Like Skyrim, The Witcher 3, the new God of War.
Probably Cyberpunk 2077 coming out in 2 years.
That one's going to be like 300 hours worth of gameplay, if not more. But like the thing that I like about horror games is like even like the longer ones, like I would argue Evil Within and Evil Within 2, like those are still like 20-hour campaigns, but like they're not too short and they're not too long. Like there's some really good ones that are fairly short, like Bendy. It's actually a pretty short game. Like,
I think one that really got it right was The Last of Us.
Yeah, The Last of Us was perfect because like it made you feel for all the characters, like such good character development. And I think what I'm excited about with this resurgence of horror, not just horror games, horror movies in general, is that like it's just we're gonna have some really terrible ones, but we're also gonna have some fantastic ones that aren't just zombies. Like that's the thing that sucks is like there isn't a really good formula for a fantastic horror game outside of Alien Isolation, which is basically taking the route of PT, and honestly I'd say even PT took the route of fucking Outlast with the whole like
I think they did it better.
Yes. Oh, I wholeheartedly agree, but like the whole like it's not zombies. You're running away in Outlast, you're running away from cultists and sick psychopaths. From an insane asylum, Alien Isolation, you're running away from one alien. So I think like that we're on the right track with this like resurrection of horror games and everything, with like being more than just zombie games, which I'm super excited about.
I think Fear needs a resurrection for sure.
Yes, I would agree. It needs to be just like the first one.
Yeah.
Like I literally pooped my pants to playing the first one.
And Fear 2, it had better management in it,
but not horror.
Well, I'm talking about like the interface.
Yeah, no, I'll agree the mechanics were better, but I think the horror in the first Fear was a lot better.
Fuck that little girl.
So, yeah, exactly.
I mean, not the R. Kelly way, but
we get it.
That dude has his own show of women talking about how. Yeah. Anyways, fuck that guy. Anyways, so like I'm excited for it, and I'm really excited to see what comes out, especially because like indie developers are killing it with horror games, like Observer, Salt and Sanctuary,
Gone Home.
So the only thing that I don't like is that most of them are walking simulators. You know what I mean?
But they still have really good.
Oh, the Edith Finch. Wouldn't that be a horror one?
Yeah, I'd say so.
I think so. I don't know. You're literally living until they die, so
right.
Each character. But yeah, Matt.
For me, it's kind of a similar statement that now that we're having this resurgence of horror, I'm hoping that companies start to see a lot of like forgotten titles and start to bring life into them. Whether it's we do get another Legacy of Kain or Fear, or The Suffering, or Manhunt, or
Condemned,
or even Park, or even another Clock Tower, Eternal Darkness. Any one of these like titles. I
know it sucks. Eternal Darkness's sequel is like literally in development hell, just like Doom was.
So, anyways, like I think that if the game companies are smart, there is potential to make money in all these titles, and it'll get them, the revenue, the money they want, and it'll give the fans something that they want. I mean, Capcom has shown that you can make a lot of money off a horror title, both with RE7 and RE2, the remake.
Which I will argue that's a remake done right. And it's the best remake ever made.
And for me, I hope that companies follow through and they do invest in these titles, and we just get some of our most beloved titles to come back. I mean, I'm pretty sure all of us, and especially all the ghouls and gals listening, would love to have another awesome Silent Hill game.
Oh, yeah. I'm super excited if they do it. Oh, and just one last game shout out. If you want to play something that you will poop yourself at, it's Amnesia: The Dark Descent. Not the sequel. Play The Dark Descent.
Or Soma.
Soma, yeah.
So that going forward, we're definitely at the end of this episode.
Oh, wait, sorry, one more. So someone said Prey in their user
Which
thing.
one? The original or the new one?
I think the new one. I think the new one is so much better than the original. Because if you liked BioShock, the first one, you'll love Prey. It is basically a spiritual successor to that, which was a spiritual successor to System Shock. But if you like the original BioShock, you'll love Prey because it's so fucking good. And it's so trippy. It makes you afraid of everything that's in the fucking complex. And so you're like, have to tread water the entire time, even when you have badass guns. So that's what I liked about it, is that you were scared the entire time.
So if you want to keep up with everything that we're doing and talk about more horror video games or just be involved in our listener participation corner, please go over to our Facebook, search up the name Punk Rock Horror Podcast, follow us, and like us on there. If you want to be following us on our Twitter, which we're now close to 850, almost 900 followers on Twitter. Thank you to all of our recent followers on Twitter. Follow us at official PRHP or
on Instagram, Punk Rock Horror Podcast, hashtag PRHP Podcast.
And if you want to support everything we're doing, please go over to our Patreon, patreon.com/punkrockhorrorpodcast. And also, probably the biggest announcement we can make, we have a merch available to you now.
Yay!
You can go get your exclusive I'm a gal and I watch horror movies, or I'm a ghoul and I watch horror movies, or the Punk Rock Horror Podcast official shirt. The link to that is at our Teespring store. It's in the episode notes below, or if you're listening to us on YouTube, the description. Please go over, get your own shirts, represent the show, and send us a picture of it. We'll put it up on our Twitter, we'll put it up on our Instagram, and we'll make sure you guys and all your beautiful faces get seen by all of the other ghouls and gals.
Their merch is actually pretty awesome, but I ain't got shit, so you can't follow me.
Thank you, Billy.
Thank you, Billy Fuzzy Toes, for coming on.
Thank you for coming on. Follow our website, www.punkrockhorrorpodcast.com. If you have strange stories that you want to send in to us still, or just movies you want us to check out, or even band info to come on for our band showcase episode, please send your email to punkrockhorrorpodcast@gmail.com. We're on Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, Player FM, YouTube, the website again, and kind of wherever else you can listen to us on podcasts, except iHeartRadio, because we have priorities, I guess. I don't know. I don't know what you want me to tell you. That being said, we're at the end of this episode. And again, thank you again, ghouls and gals, for sharing us with your family and friends. And podcast over.
Podcast over.
Podcast over.
Bye.
Bye.